Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating and, let's be honest, intense prophecies in the entire Bible, the 7 heads of Satan from the book of Revelation. We're going to unpack a really specific interpretation that sees these heads not just as mountains or old empires, but as something way more ancient and way more powerful. So let's jump right in.
Can you just imagine the Apostle John stuck on the island of Patmos when he gets this vision? He sees this huge red dragon, a symbol for Satan, and it has 7 heads, each one wearing a crown. It's an image that's both incredible and absolutely terrifying, and it's had people scratching their heads for centuries.
So that's the big question, right? What are these 7 heads? Are they literal? Are they symbolic? Well, the interpretation we're exploring today suggests there's something else entirely. Let's start peeling back the layers of this prophecy and see what we can find.
Okay, so before we can understand the whole vision, we've got to unlock the meaning of one single, super important word: head. In the biblical world, it had a very specific meaning, and it's pretty much the key to deciphering this whole thing.
See, a head isn't just talking about the thing on your shoulders. It represents a king, a ruler, the very seat of authority. And this one idea, this is the key that's going to unlock the rest of the prophecy for us.
And this isn't just a random theory. The Old Testament is full of examples that back this up. Think about it. When King Saul, who was the head of Israel, was defeated, what did his enemies do? They paraded his head around to show they had won. Same thing when David took down Goliath. He took the giant's head to Jerusalem to show that their main enemy, their champion, was defeated.
Okay, so if the 7 heads are actually 7 kings, the next obvious question is, who are they? Now, this teaching says they aren't just human rulers from history books. No, they're powerful spiritual forces that have been opposing God's people for a very, very long time.
First on the list, Pharaoh, the arrogant king of Egypt. You know, in the book of Ezekiel, he's actually called a great dragon who brags, "My river is my own. I made it for myself." That right there is the perfect picture of a spirit filled with pride and self-importance. Next up, we've got Nebuchadnezzar. He was the incredibly powerful king of Babylon, the one who conquered Jerusalem. He's another classic example of a prideful ruler who stood directly against Israel.
Now the third head is the king of Tyre, and this one is really interesting. When the prophet Ezekiel talks about him, the language he uses sounds like he's describing something more than human. He talks about his perfection, his wisdom, his beauty, right before he was totally corrupted by pride. Many see this as a clear reference to a powerful spiritual being.
The fourth head? That would be the king of Assyria, the leader of another huge empire that fought against Israel. The prophet Isaiah actually wrote down God's promise to punish this king specifically for his arrogant heart and haughty eyes. You can definitely see a theme emerging here, right?
All right, the 5th head is a little different. It's not just one king, but a group of rulers who actually teamed up against Israel. This kind of suggests that these spiritual forces don't always work alone. Sometimes they pool their authority to get what they want.
Our 6th head is King Agag, the leader of the Amalekites. Now this is a big deal because God himself declared a permanent generational war against the Amalekites for what they did to Israel in the wilderness. This represents a really deep, long-standing spiritual enemy.
And finally, we get to the 7th head, Abaddon, also known as Apollyon. His name literally means the destroyer. And in the book of Revelation, he's not even subtle about it. He's called the Angel of the Abyss and a king who rules over a demonic army. This one directly connects all those other figures to a spiritual hierarchy of evil.
So there we have it, the 7 spiritual kings. But here's the kicker. This teaching doesn't just see them as characters from the past. It sees them as active players in a final battle that hasn't even happened yet.
The idea is that these 7 spirits, Pharaoh, Nebuchadnezzar, all of them, are still around, still active, and the prophecy suggests that one day they're all going to show up again, combining their power for one last epic confrontation.
So how do they all unite? Well, according to Revelation chapter 17, these kings will have one purpose and will give their power and authority to the beast. They will literally pour all of their individual influence and power into one final figure, who many people identify as the Antichrist. That creates a truly massive force of evil.
And this unified force, the beast, supercharged by these 7 kings, will go head-to-head with Christ, who is called the Lamb here. But the prophecy is crystal clear about who wins. The Lamb will triumph, period. And all of this leads us to the real core takeaway of this entire interpretation. It boils down to a massive contrast between two very different kinds of kings, two kinds of authority, and two kinds of spirits.
Think about it. On one side, you have Satan's 7 kings. Their entire nature is about domination, pride, and ruling over others. But on the other side, you have the messengers of Christ, whose nature is the exact opposite. It's all about service. It's a fundamental conflict between ruling by force and leading through service.
So, when you boil it all down, the ultimate battle that the Bible describes isn't really between people. It's a spiritual war. It's against these ancient ruling powers that are influencing the world from behind the curtain.
And that leaves us with a pretty deep question to think about. If you accept this viewpoint, that the conflicts we see in history and even today are just reflections of a much deeper spiritual war, how does that change the way you see everything? It's a perspective that really challenges you to look past the daily headlines and think about the unseen forces that might just be at play.